what has worked and what hasn't worked with Chinese soft power initiatives. And if you'd like, you could talk specifics about Confucius Institutes or global media engagement or public diplomacy, or we can break those down into separate questions, whatever you'd like to do, but kind of your overall balance sheet, I guess, of successes and failures in this initiative.
Yeah, so even though I tried to stay away from success failure kind of binary, I know that it's tempting to still, have some sort of evaluation of like, where is it working, it's not working, and so forth. But just a few kind of points in terms of more broadly, how do we see this? I think the first distinction has to still be made between global north and global south. I think where it's working, at the very least, when we think about it working, being engagement with Chinese initiatives, receptivity towards these initiatives, even though they might be still doubted or critiqued in private forms. I think the idea of reception is still significant. If you think about Confucius Institutes in the US, a majority of them has been shut down. I think we have 19 or 18 of them left. And it used to be over 100 or maybe even close to 200. I'm forgetting the exact number, but it's a really huge reduction. And of course, we're seeing them shut down across Europe and Australia and Canada. So it's really kind of, you could say that that's a failure of this initiative, and it's been rebranded ever since. And how that rebranding is going to work, we're not quite sure. But I do think we should kind of differentiate between the vitality of some of these initiatives, like CIs, like various elite exchanges and trainings and engagements like that in the global south versus global north. Including Chinese technology, right? I think we didn't talk about this here, and I haven't really done deep empirical work on this, but it's very obvious that Chinese tech is everywhere when it comes to, let's say, Africa. I mean, selling cheap technology when it comes to smartphones, providing internet networks, smart city technology, surveillance technology as well. So all kinds of forms of technology that is empowering everyone from everyday interactions, amongst everyday people to elite officials, to police forces, to journalists. It's just on all layers. And I think that that is a very significant form of influence. And of course, again, Chinese tech is being rejected and investigated and questioned in the global north. And the other, I think, distinction here that I wanted to make that comes more from the global south research is that between more experiential facets of Chinese soft power versus more kind of narrative forms, or telling the China story, or more discursive aspects of Chinese soft power. So when it comes to Chinese media, state media, I think it hasn't been that successful across the board. We need more surveys, we need more research on the global south, but the few really good writings that I've encountered in the context of Africa found that there is very limited reception towards Chinese state media. Even amongst journalists, they find it to be less credible than Western media. And most importantly, oftentimes this state media, Chinese state media, is not very well known about. Like doesn't have a whole lot of visibility. People just don't know about it. They haven't heard of Chinese state media outlets. So the discursive kind of the narrative forms which Chinese government invests so much in. I mean, it was one of the first instruments of soft power to kind of go out, so to speak, or to become the key facet of Chinese influence. Doesn't seem to be quite as effective as the experiential, the immersive ones, which means that you come directly to China and you go through a training, or you go through a tour, you go on some kind of an experience that links you to Chinese culture or Chinese, success story, or just brings you to China. And of course, right now with zero COVID policy, that's also under question. To what extent is this experiential, immersive form of soft power going to be sustainable? Xi Jinping did talk about kind of opening up, including, incorporating more exchanges, and yet zero COVID is still on the table. So I'm not sure what that means for future of Chinese engagement, because so much of it is about seeing China. In order to understand China, you have to see China. So without seeing it, how is this going to really work? So I'm hoping to follow up on that research in Ethiopia to ask some of my former interlocutors and new ones, how do they see China having not been there for the past 3 years? Is this an entity that still feels close somehow, or does it feel very distant? So I think that aspect might be shifting. But overall, I found that the experience of China going there, despite multiple, again, kind of critiques and questions, still really brought the participants much closer to what China is about and reading about China in the news, in the media, and consuming its various forms of narrative soft power.